Hello and welcome back. In this final video for week 3, I want to look a little bit more at writing programs. If you remember earlier in the videos this week, I built up a worked example program for printing the quadratic, the solution to the quadratic. And this is the state we left it in. It hadn't quite finished the job in that it was supposed to deal with user input. It was supposed to retrieve the A, B, and C values from the user, and then use those input values to print out the resultant quadratic. So we'll finish off that example now, and I'll just point out a few things as we go. So first off, very nicely, I had added a program comment. So at the top of the program, we'd normally begin it with a little docstring that describes the purpose of this program. And often that docstring would include who the author is and what date it was written, just a little bit of more information about who to get in contact if you want to look at this, get further details for this program. So there's my little brief docstring. It's okay, but it's not great. I'd written one function, and importantly, each of my functions, as we're requiring you to do, has a docstring associated with it. So the first thing inside the function definition is a docstring that describes the purpose of this first function that I'd written. So what I need to do to finish off this program is retrieve the data from the user. So let's add another function here. Def get quad params. Okay, this function is going to have no parameters, no data is passed into this function, and our docstring is going to say prompt the user and call print quad. Okay, prompt the user, actually it could be a bit more descriptive. Prompt the user, get input, and call print quad. So that's the purpose of this function here. Okay, so what we need to do is retrieve our values for A, B, and C. So I'll say A. These aren't great variable names, but we're doing something highly mathematical here, and so it's arguably appropriate to have these very brief names for our variables here. A equals input value for A parameter. Okay, so that's the prompt to the user to type in the value for A. And if I remember, I'm going to need to turn that into a float. So I'm going to use the function float in order to retrieve a floating point value for that string that's typed in. Then B equals float input value for parameter for B parameter. Of course, I could solve this more efficiently if I was thinking about better ways to program this, or more cleanly if you like, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to do kind of brute force and simple solution, and then C, I will say value for C parameter. Okay. So at this point I've now gathered up the data that I want from the user. The last thing for me to do is to remember I've already written a function that will call and print out the quadratic. So the last thing I'll do is call print quad, passing in A, B, and C as arguments to that function. So one more look at it. Okay, we'll make it a bit bigger again, so you can see the whole thing at once. There we go. So get quad params is calling, it's not the best name for a function. I might call it something like get params and call print quad, but that's getting too much of a mouthful. So I guess that's an okay name. I'm not super happy about that function name. Perhaps it would have been best called just something simple like main. Okay, so the last thing to do is at the global level, I need to invoke the function that basically gets my program up and running. So I'll call get quad params, passing in the expected number of arguments, which is 0. Okay, so at the global level in my program, what's going on? I'm importing math. The global level, by the way, is the level where everything is indented as far as possible. So import math, define the print quad function, define the get quad params function, and then call the get quad params function. So there's very little going on at the global level, and this is a good idea in your programs. Part of the reason for that is it stops you having global data in your program, or minimizes the amount of global data, which is a concept we'll come back to later on. Okay, let's run this and see if things work as we expect. Value for A parameter, I'll make that 2, value for B parameter is 5, and value for C parameter is 2, and we get our solution, -2 and -0.5. So our little program is getting built up. Hopefully you can imagine how you'd build up programs for other small problems too. But we'll see a lot more of this in later videos. Thanks.